Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going into one of the, I think, most difficult and defining moments of modern history, the 1947 partition of India.
It's just such a monumental event. And at its heart, it's this fundamental collision between two colossal figures.
Exactly. You have Mohandas Gandhi on one side, this, champion of unity and nonviolence.
And on the other, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who becomes this brilliant, pragmatic architect of separation, all grounded in his two-nation theory.
Our sources for this, and we've looked at some really deep historical analyses, they force us to ask a tough question. How did this united struggle for independence just fracture so completely?
Yeah.
So our mission today is to really dig into those clashing ideologies that took India from a path of common resistance to, well, catastrophic division.
And to really get it, you have to start with Gandhi's ideal. His political vision was, completely tied to his moral and spiritual philosophy.
Which is Satyagraha, of course. It gets translated as truth force, right?
Right. And it's so important to understand it was never meant to be passive. Our research makes that crystal clear. It was an active, nonviolent resistance. The goal was to awaken the conscience of the oppressor.
In this case, the British Empire.
And he puts this into practice almost immediately. He comes back to India in 1915, and by 1917, he's launching his first big campaign in Champaran.
This was an area where British landlords were just brutally exploiting the local farmers.
They were. And what's so fascinating about his method here is that he deliberately sidesteps the British courts.
Yeah, that's such a key detail. He wasn't trying to win some legal battle.
No, not at all. He was aiming for something much, much deeper. He wanted to dismantle the paralysis, the fear that was gripping the masses. He wanted to show them they didn't need the oppressor's system to find justice.
So it was about psychological liberation first, political independence second.
Precisely. But then that philosophy runs headfirst into just pure state brutality.
You're talking about the Jallianwala Bagh massacre in April 1919?
An absolute horror. British troops firing on hundreds of unarmed civilians. For Gandhi, that cruelty really solidified his conviction that the British just had to go.
And yet in the aftermath, with all the rioting that break out, he actually suspends the movement.
He does. He argues that the people weren't ready, that they hadn't internalized the purity of Satyagraha. It's this first sign of a tension that will just keep repeating.
Before that fracture really deepens, though, there's this brief, almost unbelievable moment of Hindu-Muslim unity.
The Khilafat movement, from about 1919 to 1922.
And this is just, it's so vital because it shows what was possible. Gandhi gets both communities to rally around one single goal, protecting the Ottoman Caliphate.
A spiritual symbol for Muslims worldwide. And in doing so, Gandhi becomes, well, the first non-Muslim leader of what was essentially a peaceful Islamic movement.
It's hard to overstate that. I mean, for a time, he had the trust of a huge part of the world's Muslim population. It showed cooperation could completely transcend religion.
But, and this is the tragic irony, it's during this peak moment of unity that the seeds of separation are really being planted.
And that brings us right to Muhammad Ali Jinnah.
A completely different kind of leader. While Gandhi's mobilizing millions in the streets, Jinnah is working through constitutional methods, through dialogue. He's a lawyer. He believes in legislation, not agitation.
And he actually raises a warning during the Khilafat movement itself, doesn't he?
He does, and it's incredibly prophetic. He explicitly warns Gandhi against mixing religion and politics. He thought bringing hardline religious figures into the movement was just, fundamentally dangerous.
So his argument was that once you unleash that religious fervor, you can't put it back in the bottle.
Exactly. He feared it would inevitably lead to communal division once the British were gone. He saw the constitutional path as the only safe way forward.
That's a huge distinction. He's not against independence, just Gandhi's method for getting there.
And that concern eventually morphs into the two-nation theory. It wasn't just an abstract idea. It came from a very real, very deep-seated fear among many Muslims.
A fear of what, exactly?
Being marginalized, of what happens after the British leave and they're a permanent minority, under a majority Hindu government.
And you have to remember the history here. Our sources point to the collapse of the Mughal Empire in 1858. For many Muslims, there's this historical memory of already having lost their political power base once before.
So they felt they needed more than just representation. They needed a safe haven, a sovereign state, a kind of political fortress to protect their identity, their faith.
And that lack of trust, combined with Jinnah's political skill, it just creates this unstoppable momentum towards separation.
It really does. Which brings us back to Gandhi and the tragic limits of his strategy. Because as Jinnah's influence is growing, these constant outbreaks of violence just keep undermining satyagraha.
You can see the pattern. In 1922, there's the Chari Chara incident. Protesters turn violent, police officers are killed.
And what does Gandhi do? He immediately suspends the entire non-cooperation movement, the whole thing.
Which just guts the momentum of the nationalist cause. His reason being that the masses were, quote, not ready for pure nonviolence.
And that's where the critique of elitism really comes from. By halting these massive movements because of localized violence, he's putting this, well, almost impossible constraint on popular action.
And that creates a political vacuum, right?
A huge one. And it strengthens both the constitutionalists like Jinnah and the religious hardliners who think the leadership is too timid.
It happens again, even more starkly, in 1946 with the Indian Naval Mutiny.
A massive uprising, Hindu and Muslim sailors united against the British, a perfect example of popular unified militancy.
And Gandhi's reaction.
He publicly calls them reckless and ignorant for acting without guidance from political leaders. He wanted to contain everything within his strict philosophical box.
But containing the violence just became impossible. As the communal conflict got worse and worse, Gandhi's ideal of unity it evaporated.
It did. And eventually, after opposing partition so strongly for so long, he was forced to concede.
It must have been an absolutely heartbreaking moment for him.
A profound political defeat. He accepted the division of India, and he said it himself, to avoid further bloodshed. It was a choice made under the most extreme pressure.
A choice that, ironically, led to this furious backlash against him. Extremist Hindus saw it as a total betrayal, as him appeasing the Muslim minority.
And the tragic end, of course, is that the man who fought for unity his entire life was ultimately killed for accepting its failure.
Before we wrap up, we have to touch on the economic context for all of this. Because the stage for this political drama was, frankly, a wasteland.
It's so crucial. While Gandhi and Jinnah are fighting over borders, the British Raj is in the process of just bleeding India dry.
The numbers are staggering. There's an estimate that Britain drained something like $45 trillion from India between 1765 and 1938.
45 trillion. Let that sink in. Our sources say that's about 17 times the entire annual GDP of the UK today. It's almost incomprehensible.
And the result was this deep structural poverty across the whole subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. They won political freedom, but they inherited economies that were fundamentally broken.
It's a stark image, isn't it? Two great leaders fighting over the future of a house that was built on economic quicksand.
One limited by this idealism of pure nonviolence, the other driven by a pragmatic fear for his community's identity.
And in the end, both paths led to division. Gandhi's ideal couldn't withstand the violence, and Jinnah's success came at the cost of millions of lives and this permanent scar on the subcontinent.
It really leaves you with this enormous question. Given the sheer horror of partition, was it truly the lesser of two evils? Did it prevent an even bigger civil war?
Or did creating states based on religious identity just institutionalize those fears? Did it just set the stage for all the conflicts that came later?
And you have to wonder what could have been. What if Jinnah's earlier preference for constitutional politics had been used to address those fears head-on much earlier? That's the alternative history we're just left to ponder.
A heavy topic, but a vital one.
Thanks for diving in with us.
We'll see you next time.